Fire Radio.
And we're up, man. It's just like that. Everybody, welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast. Today, Jack Ayers on the left coast, California, 3 hours behind. This has been, I've been looking forward to this one. And I'll tell you why. You and I met through a mutual friend, Cameron, at FDIC this year. Cameron's been on the show. I consider him like in my top 10 favorite people. He's the most genuine soul, gentleman. And I say gentleman because he is. I mean, he's just an incredible guy. And he's a mutual friend. And when I came across him and got to meet him when I was in Napa Valley years ago with my wife, I mean, his warmth and reception was unbelievable. And then when I come to find out is he's this gangster on the training grounds and gangster in the firehouse. Yeah. And then he starts opening up this world of guys from California to me. And, brother, Jack, you're one of them, man. I absolutely enjoyed our time at FDIC this year. You guys sat down with me. Cameron, yourself, and Joey sat down with me, and we chatted in the booth for a bit. But, man, I'm looking forward to today. I really am. So thanks for joining me, man. Thanks for taking a few minutes away from that busy house you got going on behind you there.
Oh, it's all good. Like I said, we were just talking before we got on. I'm just waiting for like something to fly through the air at 100%. Me or something like that. A Nerf war. You may be part of this Nerf war. I don't know.
You know, but you know what? Yes, I hope I am, because that to me is so important, because outside of the firehouse, your downtime matters just as much as it does inside the firehouse, right? When you're at the firehouse, you're dialed in, you got to turn everything else off. And then when you're home, you got to be able to turn your family on and be involved. And like, you've already like, hey, I'll be right back. Hey, the Pentagon. Hey, this, hey, that. Right. I love that, bro. No, but that's really important. I think that's super important.
Yeah, it's about balance, right? You gotta
what the hell is balance? What is balance?
It's kind of like trying to stand on a door in a pool. Like you're trying to not sink, but also float, but also navigate. You know, I don't know. So balance.
No, I want you to explore that, because like I know how busy you are, right? You work in San Francisco, right? You're an acting captain right now in San Francisco on an engine company. So I know you're all in with that. You do a bunch of training. You work with different organizations. You bring training to the West Coast. You do all these things. But then you have a very active and young family, which is, I'm sure, so important to you. And that is probably where your grounding comes from, I got to think. So we talk about balance a lot. And I don't know what I don't think there's a such thing. I think it's a give and take. It's a 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, never 50-50. But recognizing that and dialing in, I think it's so important to recognize when you're taking too much or you need to give more, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think that, you know, there's a percentage of the fire service that are offered opportunities that other people are not. And I'm very fortunate to have been exposed to, you know, a circle of people, Ray, and a lot of great folks that are offering opportunities. For example, there was an event going on last week in another state that I was invited to help out with, but my cousin was graduating high school, and it's more important to be with them because it was already set up than going to this event. Again, very fortunate to have been offered the opportunity. Again, who am I to be asked by Ray to go somewhere? But I also need to be there to be a part of that team and that weekend activity and event cycle. So that's how
I love that.
You know,
you're right.
If it's not good at home, it's not going to be good anywhere. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that is very true. Who you are outside the firehouse is who you're going to be inside the firehouse. And I think that home life is super important, and it needs focus. And sometimes I think, especially guys like yourself, myself, and the crews that we run with, these are people that are ate up. They're passionate about the fire service, and sometimes that passion can get in the way of the other important things in life.
I think it's been focusing on, you know, if you have several like high potency events either in your region or you're going to FDIC, and really making that a very fruitful experience for the people around you, and then when you're home here, make it a fruitful experience for the people you're around at home and what activities you're involved in here. And then, you know, also being at work where, you know, that puts the food on the table too, and making that a fruitful experience for the people you're around there, because that's your work family. So
Yeah, and I mean, it just goes to focus, right? Like you have to, whatever you're doing or wherever you're involved, you have to be focused on that with an understanding that your focus and attention there affects the other things, and so you need to have that, eye level view. You need to be eye to eye with whatever you're tackling, but you also need to manage that 30,000 foot view from above to make sure the other things aren't being torn down because of it.
And that's interesting because I was having a conversation with one of the lieutenants I worked with at my fire station yesterday, and it takes a lot, it takes a village to make even a single engine company move forward. And I'm at a spot that had a very good captain before I arrived there. I'm in a battalion where I was a lieutenant for 4 years before I was lucky enough to do well on the captain's exam. And, I don't have to be, I'm responsible for everything, but everyone can be responsible for everything too. And one of the gentlemen I work with was talking to me about a piece of equipment that needed to be serviced, and he said, "Hey, I'm just going to take care of it," because it was in front of him. He took care of it. I knew he was going to do a great job. He was a great firefighter. Now he's a lieutenant working with me at the firehouse. So when I was a lieutenant, he was an engine driver and then a truck firefighter in our house at Station 14. Now he's a lieutenant where I work. And it's nice. You employ people's abilities, and it brings everybody up because maybe he's sharing that knowledge, skill, and ability with someone, a newer firefighter. Like, hey, watch how I fix this tool, or this is how we do it, and this is why. And then it makes everybody better around you versus me being the only person that can do it because I'm the captain of the house. Like, I have to fix this, that, and the other thing. Like, no, kind of like that book, It's Your Ship. Like, if you've got someone that's really good at that job, let them do that job, and it's going to make everyone better. And if they don't do that good of a job, then we learn from it. There's winning and learning, right? That's what my son's Muay Thai coach always says. There's winning and learning. So we could do well, or we could do better than how we're doing right now, but we all learn from it.
Oh, that's huge. And where does that come from you, though? Like, that, to me, a lot of that has to do with your upbringing in the fire service, the mentors that came before you, the guys that you rode underneath. While you're riding backwards, the guys up front, the engineer or chauffeur, the boss, they set a tone and environment for you early in your fire service career to understand that it is community, that it's not just one guy does it all. But it also comes from your background, I got to think, too, growing up, right? Like, where did this come from? How did you come to realize it takes a village? That it's not just the Jack show, and I'm the boss. I got to take care of everything. I got to do this instead of taking the time and employing others to work with you to build something bigger and better than just the individual.
I think my dad was in the medical world. He worked at one of the local UC hospitals here and managed a division of the hospital. And again, there's one director, and then he has all these people working below him. But hearing how he communicated with people on the phone at work, like, okay, yeah, you know what to do, take care of it, and they have to employ their knowledge, skill, and ability to fix that problem. And I guess not really like asking a question at a young age, but just maybe just hearing that and listening to it and then employing it later. But also I had a friend and supervisor, Matt, who was a military guy, came into the fire department. He's now a captain in the fire department, but he exposed me to a lot of military literature, and I enjoy reading a lot. I really like books. I don't spend a lot of time. If I'm researching something on the internet, it's because someone told me about this person or this book or this study. But I really enjoy sitting down and reading and highlighting paragraphs or passages, and those really resonate with me. And I mentioned that book, It's Your Ship, about the best damn boat in the Navy, and all these other books, General Stanley McChrystal or Mad Dog Mattis, or there's so many great authors out there. And you see how specifically Team of Teams with the management of special operations in Afghanistan from McChrystal's 50,000 foot view, where employing people's abilities that caused higher speed operations against people wishing to do harm against America and its allies. So I guess just who you surround yourself with is who you become, and then you could take that energy and expose people around you to it. People that new communities, if you're assigned to a new firehouse, taking your lessons and then sharing that with them and then hopefully they take that on, and really guiding from the side too, not just saying like, hey, this is how we do it. Like we could say that every day in the San Francisco Fire Department. Well, this is just how we do it. Well, we've hired so many people with college degrees where their 4-year college is based on a thesis statement, right? Like this is why this is, and says the guy that never went to a 4-year college. I drove past a lot of them, partied at a lot of them, but
yes,
they want to know why. Why is it this way? So in my position now, like I better have done my reading. I better have been listening or asking that person who retired, hey, why is this the way that it is? Because they're going to ask. And if I don't know, then who am I?
That's so important right there to unpack all of that. But several points there. One, you can create whatever environment you want, and you surround yourself with people that you want to emulate and be like, and that style or way of working with others or leadership will then, kind of come through you, and you pass that on. But it still takes the salesmanship of it, right? There's still a sales aspect. Hi. There's still a sales aspect to it where you have to. We're getting joined by the family. I love it. That's what this is about. And what I was saying was, it takes a salesman to be able to pitch it, though, right? It's not just about like, hey, this is the way we like to do it. This is the way, I want to employ other people to help and be a part of the process. It also takes your buy-in to your people. Like you have to want them to be a part of the process authentically, and you have to sell it to them, right?
Sure. Well, and yeah, I think there's basics work. And I know you spoke to, I think it was Anthony Rowett. At least I saw a clip about him saying, like you can go out and take a class and bring it back to your organization. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I can see him, I want to make sure I say it right. But, we've done things successfully in our organization for a long time. And what we've done works there. And I appreciate people going out and getting education and bringing that back. But kind of like back to what I said earlier, like we need to know really why we do what we do, and it's tried and true, and it works for our service delivery recipients in San Francisco, specific to building construction, or who we have riding on the rig as a reflection of who we're serving. And I have I was lucky enough, one of my mentors who passed away a few years ago gave me his dad's, who was chief of department, all of his original manuals. And it's nice because you can look back and it's still pertinent to today's practices in my organization. And I have the complete set, and it's really fun to share that with newer firefighters, and like the Tillerman's handbook. It's all hand drawn.
I want to see I gotta get my hands on these. I want to see this. Yeah,
they're over there in the closet. I'll send you some pictures. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. You're so right on so much of this, because like even that thing with Anthony that you're referring to, it was talking about people going out, going to conferences, learning different things, picking up little tips, tricks, nuggets, things like that, bringing it back, and then trying to employ it where they work or where they volunteer or where they ride. And sometimes what you learn elsewhere isn't going to work at home. And
Sure.
There can't be this level of expectation like, well, I picked up this trick or I saw how they do it there. You have to still have an understanding of like your background and why you guys do it the way you do. And what Anthony, I think, was saying was the way we do it here has worked, and it works because of X, Y, and Z. So even if you have something new to bring, it's great to check out and vet it. But our way works because it works this way. So you can't get overly disappointed when you bring something back and it doesn't work. But what I think is really important about that is finding an environment that allows for people to bring things back, and you can unpack it and look under the hood and see if it works or not, right?
Sure.
That's a powerful environment.
And see, too, how, like, someone that I'm all about people going out and getting those, building those relationships, getting that exposure. Because as an American Fire Service, we're declining in working fires annually, right? Like, protection systems are up, people are working from home, so early notification is more readily available versus someone having to run down and pull a street box and wait for the fire department to show up. But if we are expected to be 100% of the time, and we're going to less fires, what are we doing with that other piece of the pie? If There's some organizations that go to 90% fires and they spend some time brushing up on lesser used skills. But if we're not going to a lot of fires, like I feel like in my organization, it kind of like rotates around the city of San Francisco where like, okay, hey, battalion 9 and 10 are usually always hot. They usually always get good work, but it's like it kind of moves around the city. Like, oh, where's it going to be this month? You know, who's going to get the fires this month? There's some places that they're always busy. There's some places that are always going to get fires. But if we're supposed to be 100% of the time, but we're only responding to 12% fire calls, what are we doing with the rest of that time? So if people are going out and getting that training and they come back, you want to catch them before they fall and hit the ground in disappointment. Like, well, they didn't want to listen. Like, well, tell me about what you saw. Let's talk about what we do. It's kind of like when Aaron Fields says that tomato in the nozzle forward. Like, what they're saying isn't wrong.
Right. What
we're doing isn't wrong either. Maybe we're saying and doing the same thing. It's just called something else or something different. And you just need to understand how that package of education is employed here with our response, our staffing, so on and so forth. Because we have a lot of people arriving at fires very quickly in San Francisco for good reason. But we need to be cognizant of where we've come from, where we are now, how to continue those practices and educate the next generation coming up. We're hiring a lot of people, class after class. I was hired in 2012, the 114th class, and I think the 134th class is starting soon. And those are like 50-person classes each. So that's a lot of people in the almost
it's a lot. I mean,
years.
it's new hires, but think about the turnover. Think about the experience that is leaving the job.
So I was just talking to a newly promoted battalion chief who was a lieutenant when I was a probie. And I told him the other day at the dinner table, I said, I just wish I knew to ask more questions, because you don't know what you don't know. Like I was a volunteer. I worked part-time. I worked for a brief moment in Marin County as a trainee firefighter before I went to San Francisco. And I certainly did. I love taking classes. I love reading. I love talking to people about fires or what works, what doesn't. But I was lucky enough, the 2 firehouses I was at, the truck company, the average was 25 to 30 years for each member on the truck.
Wow.
And then here I am, this new firefighter. And I remember one gentleman told me, I was upstairs by myself cleaning the trash cans at 8:00 in the morning. He said, "Hey, I don't want you to be doing this until you could tell me about 3 articles that are in the San Francisco Chronicle." And I was like, oh, I can't be reading the paper downstairs. But it wasn't about that. It was about being around that kitchen area as guys are discussing things that they've either read or how that affects the job, or, the cost of housing going up in San Francisco or whatever. That's what he's talking about, exposure to these people and their time and experience. And certainly I got great nuggets from them. And then I went on to a busy engine company where I got great nuggets from folks there as well. I have no regrets. I wish I knew more questions to ask of them since they've retired.
That is so awesome. I don't want you cleaning the garbage cans until you at least know 3 articles in the paper.
Well, here I am.
And that was his. Go ahead.
That's his way of saying, like, hey, we want you to be down here, not like, hey, bro, you need to be down here sweeping the floor. And then I have a probie fresh out of the academy assigned to me, and my translation of that was, a lot happens on the first floor of the firehouse in the morning. It's important, yes, that your stuff's next to the rig, that you check the SCBA. That is, because what happens at 8:01 in the morning, a box will come in and you're going to wish that you had checked all your stuff, your nozzles, your hose loads, your gear by the rig, your SCBA, your medical bag. That's important. But there's a lot of no conversations are happening upstairs in the hallway between people. Maybe there is, but everything is happening downstairs in our firehouse, in the comm room, in the kitchen area, on the apparatus floor. That's where the new people should be, not tucked away up in some corner of the firehouse. And now, granted, some fire stations run a different program, and that's okay because it works for them. Maybe that's what their expectations are of their people. And I'm not treading on those firehouses to do that. Yeah.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it works for you. But like that that it's not even the fact that it's the first floor. It's just the mindset of that. It's like, we want you to be dialed in and a part of the team. The team works on the first floor, right? When you're upstairs, it's typically an individual thing, whatever. We want you down here. Like, we want you down here where you can absorb every conversation that's going on, or somebody says something and next thing you know, it breaks out into a 20-minute tear that compartment apart and go through something because it came up in conversation, and you would miss that if you're not downstairs and a part of us. That to me is like, what a great way to put that all together. I love that. Like, but that's that old school mentality that you grew up with in the firehouse, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny thinking about that. I remember our good friend Ray was coming back. He was working with an organization up here in the North Bay of California, and he was flying back out of San Francisco, and he said, hey, I'll stop by the firehouse on my way in and have a cup of tea. And so we're finishing up roll call, which would be the time for us to go do our housework and do the rig checks and stuff. And as we're getting ready to break, certainly the probies could have gone off and done their thing, but I look over my shoulder and I see Ray's glasses peering through the door into the comm room, and it turned into like a 3-hour experience with Ray, to the point where we're stretching hose in the stairwell, talking about the return stairs, and we all got to be a part of that. And it was really neat because, of course, we would have brought the probies downstairs if Ray was there, but you hate to miss. There's a lot that happens on the first floor. So, yeah. You just mentioned something, relationships, like to have that experience. I said to you before we started recording, you said something, and you said it was based on experience or based on relationships, and I quoted it on my pad and circled it. And I wanted to come back to that, which is a great segue into it, because the relationships you've made throughout the fire service, whether it was your mentorship, the senior men that were there as leaders and pillars for you to learn from, that later in your career had become friends, and then that it goes to the next level. But now, too, with your ability to network outside of San Francisco, whether it's through training, guys like Cameron and Ray and other people like that, how important are those relationships for your personal growth, but also your growth in the firehouse and what it brings back, what you bring back to your guys when you get to disconnect and go do something like that? I think it's great. I'm very fortunate to be involved in our local junior college fire academy there, where I get to do the work with the hose and nozzles and forcible entry folks. And I was allowed from one of my when I was just getting started, this gentleman was a battalion chief in Cal Fire, and he then retired and took over the coordinator position. But he allowed me to build a team around hose and nozzles for the college, and it was great because Cameron always said, like, this is the best fire department to work for. It's like all our friends, and we get to go to fires every day. That's cool. Stretching line and stuff like that. And that relationship, that trust, allowed that to be a very great experience. And I feel like, you said unplug and go somewhere else and do that. I really value those relationships. Like, I met through Matt, who I work with, I met Mickey Conboy, who is what an individual, part of a team, such a sound pillar to be associated with, and to be able to reach out to and have conversations with. And it's because of going to these events outside the fire department and meeting these people, and then maintaining those relationships, asking questions, and gaining those experiences, being able to bring that home and then share that, like, hey, this person who was just featured in FDTN or something like that, this is what they were talking about. And it's like those people get to have that same experience in a way too, How do we get more guys to appreciate and understand what that can do for you? Like, I look at myself in my department and how I put myself out there to go meet and learn and do more. And fortunately, I'm very lucky that I have National Fire Radio that opens up a lot of these doors for me. But anybody can go seek more. How do we light a fire under those guys to go do that? That's what I'm always challenged with. How do I push these guys to dip their toes in the water? Sure. I think we have to show validity in what we're asking them to do. Like, this is how it can make you better. There are a lot of platforms out there. There's a lot of material. Some say this is the best time to be a firefighter because this allows you to talk to whoever, whenever, wherever. And sure, that's part of an experience. But my statement is like with the decline in fires nationally, like if we aren't practicing like we're going to fires or facilitating opportunities for people to go out and make these experiences happen for them, social events after class, or bringing in instructors that want to have those sidebar conversations during an event. It's our responsibility. I think people that are exposed to people outside of their organization have a responsibility to then try to facilitate experiences maybe closer to home. Maybe people can't afford to fly to FDIC or to county fire tactics or something like that. So that's
Right.
something for me, having come up in this region, I never knew what I didn't know. I thought the triple fold and 750 gallon tanks were it for the longest time. And I told some of my peers here, like, I wish I could go back and have these relationships earlier. But now that I have them, I have to accelerate other people's exposure to them if they want. Like, you know, if you what's that saying? Like, if you plant it, they will come. I don't know if that's the right
Sure.
phrase.
Well,
but
if you build it, they will come, right? Field the dreams, right?
yeah.
Build the field, they'll come,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. No,
but-
you're good. It
right.
makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So,
But we
that's
can't.
where-
But we can't push. We have to be careful we don't push too hard because it's
right. I'm not out there with a billboard like trying to sell oil changes for cheap or something like that. But I try to
Yeah.
in my position in the organization where I work, show that, hey, these drills are based on fires that I've either responded to, peers have responded to. They've either won or they've learned from it, but we need to recreate that experience. And then I'm going to double down and then try to direct you towards a close single day class or lecture where you can go and hear again from another person that lives 3,000 miles away, that works in a similar territory or like building construction style city. And you can see like, hey, don't take it from me. I shared with you my experience or a peer's experience. But you could hear it again from someone that's going to those same fires or having those same experiences. And then those are just slides in the slideshow for later.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've either responded to the fire, you've talked to someone that responded to the fire, or you've read about that or watched it, to the point if you go over and over and over it, then it's like you almost like you were there.
Yes, all of it. Yes. Keep going.
Yeah, I think you experience that. You arrive at a door and it's locked. You've checked for heat. It's you've checked the door. You're gonna go to force it. The door props are great, but going out and doing the classes and hearing from other people that have had similar experiences, that'll come before you, and you'll be able to execute based on knowledge, skill, and ability gathered from like a tangible experience that either you've had or someone around you has had. And I think that that's important, because the less time we spend in the yard, the better, because we got to get in for them, right? To put the fire out and search for victims.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and I love all of that, because there is so much out there. There's anything you're seeking or looking for, it's there. You just have to be willing to go find it. And I challenge guys all the time, and I say this all the time. It's like, if you feel like something's missing or you feel like you need more, it's there. You just have to go look for it. You have to find it, but it exists. In a world of today where we have more opportunity than ever, you held your phone up before, right? Like, we have more opportunity than ever before. Go find what you need to make yourself better. And in the fire service, man, is there an unlimited amount of resources available to you today than ever before to go help you become bigger, better, stronger, smarter, whatever you want. It's there today. You just got to go do it. I think what's important too is for guys like us, when we bring back the excitement of what we just did, we have to be careful that we're not pounding our chest in front of our people and saying, look at this, look at that, look at this. We have to sell it. And that was that salesman approach before that I hit you with, where we have to understand that a lot of people could be turned off by that. 100%. And we have to find a balance where we can bring people up and bring people down, and we can get to this level of mutual understanding or mutual wants and desires to be better. We just have to play that salesmanship game to get everybody there. But man, we can't just come home and beat our chest about how great the experience was and how great we are for being there. It's much more humble than that. There's humility that has to be built in, is what will bring other people on board.
I think so. Two things. I think if you could take what, I think I said earlier, if you could take what you've experienced outside, tie it to a relatable experience or application within your organization, wherever you are, single engine company, 44 engines, wherever, if you could tie it together, then it doesn't make education evil. And I'm so thankful that our in-service division of training has really, in the short time I've been in the San Francisco Fire Department, they've done an amazing job recreating experiences that firefighters have had. And they've got a great set of folks down there led by a captain who, they would call it like live fire training, but they go down there and recreate these complications that companies may have experienced at fires. And it's awesome, to the point where when people were like, oh, you got to go to live fire day? Darn it. I wish I could have gone. It's like, sweet. That's awesome.
Yes.
People want to train, and they want to go down there, and they want to hear it. There's no ego. It's awesome. I've been fortunate enough to go down there a few times and participate in the drills, and it's awesome. And it's all based off of fires that we've responded to. And I think that's important, because that's the hook. That's like, hey,
that's the win. That's the win. Yeah.
And so we're also doing a great job. The administration has been we host a lot of technical classes at one of our training facilities, but they're also hosting a lot of lecture-based classes, whether it's, command or fire instructor. So people get that kind of a basis of application of management or education. Like, hey, here's how to do a drill. Like, is it a drill on a fire extinguisher, or is it a drill on this? So that when you do have those people that maybe less excited about a drill, you can say, hey, this worked in a fire when? Okay, well, that's interesting. I want to hear about this fire you went to. So it's giving people tools in the toolbox to be successful in the firehouse. And I really think tying it all together is important. Whether you're taking a lecture, you're doing the hands-on, you go somewhere else, and you tie it back to where you work and how it's applicable to where your service delivery model is. That's important, because the last thing you want to do is be like, hey, I learned this from a guy who is like, well, he's not here or she's not there. It's like, that wasn't the message. You don't want to slip on that. You want to say, hey, we had a fire where this was applicable. I also saw it here at this class, and it's also being done over here at in-service training. That's kind of like the lotto ticket right there.
Bro, it is such a win. I'm sitting here wrapping my brain around this, because that is the hook. You're 100% right. When you have a training division that's dialed in, that they hear about a fire or it's the fire is told. How often do we go to fires? We come back and we talk about it and we go, that was close. That was this was that. We should have done better here. What is going on there? What's going on in your background? It sounds like somebody just took silverware and dumped it all over the floor.
My wife's going to gym. She's getting ice out of the ice machine. Yes. Just continue on.
Oh, my God. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I love that.
Right.
What I was saying was to have a training academy that wants to mock up fires of something that companies had faced in the field. There's such a buy-in, because you hear, if you're not working that day and you hear about that fire and you hear things went a little sideways, or you hear this or that, to be able to take what happened on the street and recreate it, to get people to have that buy-in, to say, listen, things went a little sideways on Main Street the other day. We're gonna try to replicate as much as we can about what went on, so we can better our response next time, or put guys in different positions where they maybe should have been, or companies are out, whatever it was. But when you do that, there's practical application, and it's not you go to a snotty fire, 2 days later you get rotated into the academy, and it's a pallet burn on a 12 by 12 concrete room, and okay, that was fun, let's get out of here. There's no buy-in there.
I think what they're doing is sharpening the sword. We're also, which is
Yes.
great. We are in a busy area of, San Francisco's a busy place to work. Some companies run a lot more calls than I do. So sometimes we have to pick up and get back in service. But one thing they're doing is the AAR, the after action review, where they're taking every fire, they're looking at it, they're the whole winning and learning thing. And that's great too, because that's kind of like what I was saying earlier, taking that experience they had all the way across town in another division. You're sitting down saying, hey, let's have a constructive conversation. We're not talking crap about anybody. Like, let's talk about
Right.
the win and the learn, and then everyone is better for it. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's great that the top values that and is bringing that down to the troops in the field.
Well, that's a culture that wants to move forward. They want to progress. They want to better. They're always looking to do more and be better. And I think that that's important, right? It's the departments that get complacent or comfortable with where they are and who they are and how they operate, and they're never adjusting or doing an analyzation of who they are or what they do, and they're just comfortable with where they've been. Like, I think that's dangerous. So kudos to you guys. I want to ask you this, right? With San Francisco, I gotta believe, man, that is a tough town to be a fireman in. And I wanna talk about that because you're talking old construction. The terrain is crazy, right? You have unbelievable exposure problems. I mean, just the list that goes on and on and on of things that you think about when you think about San Francisco and firefighting. So, what is it for you, man? Like, give me a little rundown for yourself. Like, fires in San Francisco, some challenges that you guys face that are on the regular. Like, I mean, it's got to be a little bit different. I got to believe.
So, getting out the door is important. So we look at like the density of our jurisdiction, which is the city and county of San Francisco. We're the only fire department in the county of San Francisco. So we have above ground rail, like trolley cars, street cars, muni buses, high density civilians, a lot of bicyclists, unmanned or unpersoned taxi cars driving around, which so just getting out of the firehouse, you have all these forces of transportation pushing against you. And then what jurisdiction are you working in? Are you downtown in a very high density multi-level apartment or commercial structure? Are you out in the avenues, or where there's a 2 or 3 bedroom, or 2 or 3 floor home apartment building with 0 lot lines, so they're right next to each other? It's the demographics different. It's almost like we have 10 different cities in San Francisco. We have like the Hunters Point area where they have like a lot of commercial, like a lot of warehouses, but also have residential. The Tenderloin downtown, very busy area, apartment buildings, commercial, a lot of people walking around. The waterfront, the city's surrounded on 3 sides by water. So, is it a marine response? Is it a fireboat response?
A lot. You guys have it all. There's no doubt.
It is a firefighter's playground for sure. But I think that goes back to readiness and what are we doing to be ready for when the call happens. I was very fortunate to work at a station out on the west side of town for almost 4 years as a lieutenant, and there was only one truck company in the battalion. So the mindset was we have to split to conduct a search because the rescue, which is assigned search, is coming from downtown. So we have to be thinking multiple disciplines: ventilation, first supporting the engine, getting in, up, and to the seat of the fire, searching back from the hose line, coordinating ventilation. That's just the truck. And then the engine, it's like, well, if it's just us because the other engines around us are on calls, are we laying in our own supply? Are we hoping the second and third get there quickly to supply us? There's a lot of moving parts before we even hit the air brake and arrive on scene. So
I love it. There's so much here because you and I were going through some text messages a little while back. We were talking about your hose loads. I was asking you some questions about just like operationally, like how you guys do that, and so on, which I thought was really interesting. But like, it's just a different and unique place that is rooted in a lot of traditions, right? And so like that certainly, and you alluded to it before, like the playbooks, and it's fun to look back at the playbooks from years past, and you haven't deviated much from those over the years.
You know, as much as I would love to have a dead load on my engine, I need to look in the mirror and ask myself, like, well, hold on, like what you have has worked. What you need to do is practice it more so you feel more comfortable with it. It's like, okay, yeah, that's right. Like we don't have the latitude to just switch things up on the fly. Everything's very uniform as far as left to right, lengths of leads, supply bed is it has to be a minimum supply and attack bed. So it's like, okay, one thing we do have that we're very fortunate is staffing. So it's like, okay, the communication between the first due and the second due engine, if we are doing this longer than 200-foot ready line lead, is, how do we do that? Because when it's time to go, it's not time to drill. Like I need to get with these companies right away to practice, like, hey, this is my communication to you if my lead is going to exceed 200 feet. This is exactly where I need you to be. I need you to be in the right place, managing these corners to get the line placed. We all know that the fire goes as the first line goes. And if we delay water on the fire, especially where we work, where we have a lot of wood frame buildings, 0 lot lines, immediate exposures on the Charlie side, we have to curb this fire's advancement, or else we're going to have a second alarm quickly. We have the vertical exposure, the horizontal exposure, and we need to get water on the fire fast. So,
yeah, I mean, the priority there for sure, it's anywhere, but like in your city, man, getting water to the seat of that fire is critical. I mean, just critical. You are a combustion city, man.
Yeah.
And everything's vertical. And the fires that I've seen and looking at and watching you guys operate there, man, there is a fast tempo to the delivery of your services when you arrive on scene.
We are very fortunate to have apparatus in abundance. Sometimes companies are out on drills or they're on calls, so it's a little bit thinner, and people are like, oh, you had to wait 3 minutes for a second engine. It's like, yeah, we had to wait 3 minutes. But it's kind of circling back to that, decline in fires. We need to pretend like we're going to fires, or we need to drill like we're going to fires. And for the companies that are going to more fires, that's fantastic. You're getting those higher percentage of touches, but it's on us to, as from the battalion and the captains and the lieutenants in my area, we have had days where we've had 2 fire days, several days in a row, which are great, but we need to recreate that. We need to communicate that, because with all these people we're hiring, we have to get them those slides as fast as possible so that they know, like, okay, my responsibility is layout. What does that entail? My job is the second due nozzle person. What does that entail? Where do I go on the fire ground? What's my expectation? Where's the chief going to look next for that second line to go? Where does that officer need to be? And just being in the right place at the right time. So we need to recreate those experiences with our company drills, with responding to alarms, with in-service training, and going to classes that are parallel to how we do business. One of my former captains always said, you can get a nugget out of every class you go to. So go with an open mind and bring that back and see how it applies to your service delivery model where you work. So, because it's very easy in a city of over 150 years of service to say, no, that's no. It's like, well, back to the tomato. Like there's validity to the statement, but how does it apply to us? So then it's applicable to how we do business.
Yeah, and I love, too, where you are right now in your own career. I mean, 12 years with San Francisco. You're an acting captain right now. Yeah, so coming up on 12 years. You're in that really interesting spot. You're in that spot where, you have enough time in to feel confident in your skills and abilities and leadership. You're still learning as the job goes. Obviously, everybody does, but you're rooted now. And now you have guys coming up behind you, and you talk about the expeditious nature of you guys putting on more and more people. And you hit on it before with the differences of today and a lot of the asking of why. We have a lot of people that are institutionally educated that are coming in that are asking. They're more interested in understanding all of it instead of just being told. They want to understand it. And so for you, I think what's really interesting with your time on the job, you came from mentors and leaders and guys that kind of probably groomed you in maybe still a little bit of an old-fashioned type of way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas today, now you're starting to lead and groom the next generations below you, and it's a little bit different in the delivery, but the services don't change. The expeditious nature in what you guys do doesn't change. Fires don't change. So we need to get and buy into this next generation because they are the next generation. So give me a little rundown for you on that process. I'd love to just get your thoughts.
We've seen a lot of articles in fire engineering and firehouse, not a lot, but like how to deal with the new generation. Like it is a talking point. People are identifying that, like you just said, like this is who we're hiring. We're not hiring everyone from the trades. We're hiring people that may have worked as an auto salesman, or they were a social worker or something like that. We have to find what they did before, their value in it. So like the auto salesperson, like customer service, you believed in delivering a product to a consumer. Well, that's no different than what we're doing. When we show up at someone's worst day, we're giving them our product, which is, service and care and hopefully swift resolution to their situation that they're in. I think it's a hurdle. It's a big hurdle because you could easily just give up and just do the minimum, but that's not going to make the fires go out faster. It's not going to make
it's not who we are.
No, it's not. And I think to hold back because you don't like that trajectory, like that's not good. It's kind of like weaponizing your experience. Like, I'm going to hold back. I'm going to withhold information from you because I don't like where you come from. It's like, well, they're here now. Like we own them. And I'm not saying that with my organization. I'm saying that with kind of like the fire service in a whole. We have to fold them in and kind of baptize them by training and experience. Like we have to download our experiences with them and expose them as quickly as we can so that we can get them up to that fighting strength. So
we gotta give them everything we can, right?
Yeah, it's more drills, more synthesis level thinking on the why and how
whatever it takes.
Yeah, and I think
I don't mean to cut when I talk. Don't stop. Just
no,
it's me. My brain spins while you're going. So, like we don't have a freaking choice, man. We don't have a choice.
Yeah.
This is these guys and girls coming up in the fire service are the next generation.
Yep.
We can sit and complain and find ways to not include them into the fold or complain about this or carry on about that, or we could do the work and do the very best we can to make them the next generation that's going to carry this job forward.
I think that we
got to do the work.
Yeah, it's we are a trade organization, right? We have so much time to download. Our probation time, speaking about our organization, it's 12 months, 6 months on an engine, 6 months on a truck. And after that, they go into the unassigned world where they're placed at a station. And for that 12 months, you have them as a probie. You have to fortify their learning style, their asking of questions style, their up from down, what's left and right, so that when they do go to their unassigned house, day one off probation, they could be driving a ladder truck or an engine to a fifth alarm fire. And you have to hope that we've given them everything we can to be successful.
Yes.
Because like we said, responding to the emergency isn't time to train. And that's why we have to turn every alarm call we go to, every building alarm box as a drill. We should stretch a line at those drills or at those calls. We should throw ladders at those calls and build that recognition, prime decision making for the people. And even if it's someone that's on a different company, they see how you're behaving and they say, okay, that's the right way to do business. So you're never caught off guard. There's some of our busiest companies, they hook up to the standpipe every single time because they expect fire. And I applaud, companies that are running 35 runs a day are doing the necessary, simple basics to have success and effective firemanship on the fire ground. And I applaud that. And that's something for a company that runs less calls than they do. If they're doing it, we absolutely should be doing it. So it's seeing that leadership from the firefighter level, their lieutenant and captain level, and knowing that that's how we should be behaving. So even if we aren't running a higher volume of calls or more fires in certain areas of our communities, we need to train and prepare like we're doing that. Because very well tomorrow you could be detailed into that company and bang, you want to make sure that you've given them everything they can to be successful when it's time to turn out. And again, I'm still learning. I love taking classes. I was in a class last week. Chief Lee was talking in Berkeley. We were there with a bunch of the Fire Nuggets folks, and hoping for we got several nuggets from that class, but trying to get more to sharpen that edge and bring back applicable nuggets to how we do business where we work. So
I love it. I mean, there's so much there. And the one thing you hit on, which I know is important to you, is like to make sure that you're not holding back and you're giving everything to this next generation, right? We don't withhold information.
Right.
Don't withhold information.
I think that's kind of like a felony in the fire service. And, if you have experiences, just because someone doesn't come from the same place you come from, or hasn't done what you've done, or maybe works at a slower department, you can't weaponize what you know. And the weapon is not sharing. If you withhold it, then they're doing the same job you're doing, just in a different jurisdiction. Download. And there was, where I have been fortunate enough, I sought out a mentor of mine at the college who is a chief where I work in San Francisco. I wanted to get more touches on heavy lifting and moving, and he allowed me to come out and help him. And now look, I get to do all this other cool stuff at the college. But
yeah,
it's
awesome.
It brings people together from different jurisdictions that want to get better. Like, no one's out there just to talk about no one's there talking about how good they are at doing hose leads or anything like that. Everyone's there to pick up nuggets from their peer group. So we have to download that information on our peer group as well. The people that are out there teaching and sharing information, not, with each other, Cameron and I, or Gabe or Joey sharing there, so that we could share to the level that's coming in behind us, not below us, behind us. We're all equal.
Absolutely. And I love what you said too, though, is that to the college, right? You were interested in bettering yourself, and because of that, it opened up an unbelievable amount of doors for you.
It's a fantastic experience.
That's it.
Cameron said, he's like, "Oh, this is like the best fire. Yeah, this is the best fire department. Like, we just come out here and stretch hose lines every day and be around people that want to be here. And no one's mandatory to go teach there. You're like, hey, you're mandated. You got to go teach hose leads all day. Like, it's people that want to go out and have conversations and share experiences. Even if you work in the one station department just north of town here, and you had a fire that we can learn from. I learned from that, apparatus positioning, communicating the need for the stretch. That's totally applicable, and I could share that. It doesn't matter, no name fire department, wherever, that's applicable to where I work too. Hey, they had this experience, or, really, we had this experience. We at the fire service had this experience, and we learned from it. And I'm going to share that with you because it's applicable to, these 5 addresses within a block of the firehouse. It doesn't matter if it was 75 miles north of San Francisco.
Right. We're all going to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Fire's fire. We're gonna learn from it, right? Whether it's a 2-man engine company or a 6-man engine company, whatever it is, we're gonna learn from it, and that's important to provide a network in which we can, and to see value in that. I want to talk about sharing. You talked about sharing information and so on. You guys are going to be sharing a lot of information next year. I mean, you guys are all ate up now with training and conferences and, networking, getting to know people, pushing your careers further and educating yourselves deeper. I love all that, but it's a different thing when you take on the actual conference itself. And so you guys are going to be doing that, right? So Jack, give me a little rundown about what's happening in 25 in the Sonoma Valley area.
It'll be Sonoma County, right?
Sonoma County. Okay.
Sonoma County. Yep. We are, which is a community north of San Francisco. We are very fortunate to bring back, this will be the 5th annual Bay Area Firefighters Conference hosted by Fire Nuggets. It'll be at the Santa Rosa Fire Department's Training Center and Public Utilities Building, where that'll be where the lectures are held. This goes back to, they had several Bay Area Fire conferences in the East Bay prior to COVID, and I had gone with one of our friends, Japin, and Cameron, and some other folks. Took some really great classes, and all of us, having been from the North Bay, were like, wow, like this would be really neat to do it up this way, like, and expose all these great people to these opportunities. And
right.
So I reached out to David Sprigg at the time, who's now the chief of Berkeley, who's heavily involved in the Bay Area Fire Nuggets. And I said, hey, I got this idea. And he said, yeah, let's do it. So based on those relationships, I was able to reach out to Santa Rosa, which is the largest entity north of San Francisco as far as like a training tower that can host for us. And I remember like it was yesterday, calling Cameron and saying, hey, I've got this idea of a fire conference.
That's how it always starts.
Right. Like it's like that scene from The Town where I'm like, hey, I can't tell you what we're going to do, but we got to go.
That's right.
Do this thing. And so then, of course, the next phone call was to Gabe, who works for Sonoma. I said, hey, I got this idea. And he's like, yeah, I'll call Kevin and we'll get a gang together and we'll do it. And bang. So 2023 happened. The Bay Area Firefighters Conference. We had over 450 attendees here in Sonoma County from
awesome.
a majority from our area, Sonoma Lake, Napa, Mendocino, and Marin. We just did the 2024 event in Livermore, and now we're 11 months out planning 2025 as we speak. So it's going to be great.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Talk about what it's like to bring that type of that level of training home. You know, so often we have to travel to go get it, but
Sure.
to host it in your backyard, to expose your own people to it.
Right.
I mean, there's just another level of excitement around that, no?
It 100%. It's an opportunity to bring effective firemanship to our people. And there are so many classes out there, so many different instructors, so many different cadres out there, but we are very lucky with the Fire Nuggets vessel bringing these certain folks to our area of operation. And why is it so important? It's in our backyard because these are the folks that are responding to our loved ones when we're at work. So it's like,
that's right.
I want to bring this experience to you. And if you take away 2 nuggets and then apply it later that night, which they did, Justin McWilliams' search culture class, the City of Vacaville Fire Department applied window initiated search later that night at a fire that they had. So it's working. And I love getting photos from people that have gone to our classes at fires. You know, they're not taking the photo, they're fighting the fire, but a photo from the event. And you see like, oh, wow, like they're using the layout techniques that they learned from Ray or PK, or they're using skills learned by Cody Trustrail and the BIB group. And they're getting in faster to occupy space and search for victims and put out the fire. And that's the win, because it's the communities we live in, and we're just trying to sharpen that sword. And I think one thing that I'm very happy about is that people believe in this event. And we just had our meeting at Santa Rosa with their deputy chiefs, and it was like, great. So what are we going to do? There's no sales pitch. It was just like, okay, let's get to work. Let's do it.
Yeah,
and it's like,
right.
Wow, that's awesome. And very fortunate that folks, we're folding even more people into the process of executing the event, building depth in our team, because it's important. And we need to show people what's out there and how they can do it in their areas. And with Fire Nuggets being the vessel for that, it only brings success. I can't, other than needing like an additional dumpster for cleanup after the BIB VES class, like that was like the only shortcoming, I think, from last year's event. And
right.
It was great.
Which is, you know what, in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
You
right.
know, it's a win.
It was neat. Cameron and I took a photo the day that we pitched it at Santa Rosa, and then the last day of the class at the 2023 event. Like it's the same photo, just 18 months later. And I sent it to him him that this morning. And it's just awesome. It's great. And it's cool that I get to sleep in my own bed too. Like every night I can come home,
Well, that's very nice as well, for sure.
So, or the kids can come,
listen, home games.
The kids can come, kids can come around. And I think I have a video of my daughter flowing a 2 1/4 with Austin from the city in one of the Connex boxes. So
it's cool.
Yeah. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I got to think too, for you, it's like a full circle moment also, right? Because that's where, you got your start there, right?
Yeah.
As a young volunteer, as a young kid, right? Coming up through the fire service, and to be able to be one of the people to bring something like this to the region, and be a part of the team that is looking to better the delivery of services, to better our people, to better the fire service. Like, brother, that's powerful. That's powerful.
I never want to say like how we've done it was wrong. That's not a correct statement. It's like, but could we do it better? Could we be faster? Could we be sharper? Could it be more fierce? Could it be more aggressive? And because again, I grew up on a 750 tank and a triple fold. Like, I can't be mad at the triple fold, like, because I didn't know any better. The 50 to 350, right. The 50 to 350 adjustable gallonage fog nozzle. Like, I didn't know.
That's all you know.
I didn't know, but
fires went out.
They sure did. Yeah, in many ways, shapes, and forms. But it's like, hey, this is how we've done it, and fires went out. But check this out. This is how we've done it.
Sure.
But like, look at these ideas. Not they aren't the way you have to do it. But maybe you take a couple nuggets back, and maybe departments change, and now they're using shoulder loaded culture because of more density in their jurisdictions. Or maybe they found that if we aren't getting it with 500 gallons, it's going to be 5,000 gallons. So, okay, well, maybe we don't need a larger engine all the time. Maybe we need smaller, more, quicker to respond apparatus. And maybe our staffing's changed dramatically in Sonoma County over the last 20 years, where we had predominantly volunteer fire departments, and the 101 corridor through Sonoma County was a career, more dense area. Now, the same engine that I grew up on as a volunteer has 3 full-time firefighters, and that 4th person is that on-call paid shift firefighter. So that's incredible. Like, never would have thought, but now it happened, and that's cool. So, yeah.
Well, and it's part of it's the evolution of the fire service, and we said it before that today there's more opportunity than ever, and with opportunity comes the ability to learn more. You open, it's much more broader today than it's ever been to go find what you need to want to learn, do more, be better, right? And so, and it's guys like you that continually want to learn and push the envelope and bring, and by doing so, you're bringing it back to where you got your start. It's magical, man. And I think kudos to you. Yeah.
Shane Kailoa, one of our chiefs in the department, he always said, if you aren't moving forward, you're not moving at all. And so, just taking those experiences and thinking like, okay, well, we're not, we need classes up here for people, sometimes it's a burden for a volunteer organization that has a training budget of $15,000 a year to fly people to places.
What are they going to
do? Oh, you're right. So let's just flip the script and we'll bring them here. And, we had Ray McCormick and Chris Slayer in Petaluma last year. That was incredible. Justin McWilliams just did a tour over in Napa with Ryan Shinogian at Napa Fire, which was awesome. And it's great. Like, all these different data points hitting in our area, and people are taking those nuggets and applying it. And again, like, not all of it is applicable to your organization, but what you're hearing and then understanding how it translates to how your organization does business, or maybe just readjusting a couple of the blocks for a more effective service delivery, is a win. Because it is a win, because the people are paying you to come out and win for them. So,
and I want to say this too, is that's on a big scale, bringing in names and people from across internationally, nationally, to come in and teach and train. What that does though too, on the informal side, is that creates an environment of excitement. Is that people look at it and say, my home turf, my county is, we're getting and we're buying in more than ever before, because we're providing or recognizing we want more here. We've been hungry, and now we're starting to get fed, and it builds the excitement, right? When you're a firefighter in that county and you see that there's opportunities locally that you never had before, it tells you that I want to do a little bit more. I want to be, maybe we could be a little bit better, because if this area, this region is starting to better themselves by bringing in external sources and more training and different things like this, it means that the fire service is good, it's healthy, it's growing. That's exciting, man.
And that goes back to
fuse, and then just
that goes back to relationships, because it wouldn't have happened. Like it won't happen here unless there's regional buy-in. And so
that's it.
Kind of like back to that turf at the college. Like, well, I've got a member from this organization here. I've got a member from this organization here. I used to work with those three guys there. Like, hey guys, I have an idea, and then they take it back, or they're the representative from their organization that is part of the team that then makes it happen. And for us, like we're we have Marin County represented, Sonoma County, Napa County, Solano County, all members of our team. I mean, that is a huge territory we're covering, and the Berkeley area, Livermore, Pleasanton. We all have these faces as part of the team because they believe in it. So, we have mentors and peers within our organization that we can work with, but we also, it's like boundaryless too. And that's the benefit of being affiliated with a group outside of the fire department, because it's like, look at what we can pull together for our area. And it's less impacting than flying folks out to another location. And also, like, I don't want to steal people's intellectual material. Like, that's not the objective of this conference. Like, you do you where you want to do it, and we'll try to do something different than you did, so that there's not a redundancy, and then it kind of like dilutes the field of training, because then that kind of gets like, well, no, I just did that. Like Fresno, they put on a top-notch program. Fresno training officers, the California training officers in Fresno in March, great program. Let's do something great in the North Bay, different than what they're doing. So you have a choice where you want to go, and it's going to be a different material, because I think we have to work together to make sure we aren't neutralizing the training material that's out there. So.
Yeah, and even if there's similar classes, listen, everybody makes a different chocolate ice cream. Some are better than others, man. Right. Like there's coffee, there's good coffee and bad coffee, like all of it, right? But I think what's exciting, and what I'm trying to get at is, like, we need to give all this away. We need to give as much. We're talking about opportunity today. We're talking about there's more opportunity than ever. So let's run with that and bring opportunity to our zip code. Bring it home. Help others that are seeking it, or maybe they don't even know. How about the guy that didn't even know he was looking for something, and it gets delivered to him, and he goes, that's not bad. Right. That's exciting.
That's a win. And I think I really like working with, I'm a new captain in the fire department, working with new lieutenants. We got to edit that out. New lieutenants around us. I'm really excited about them getting those slides and me learning from them as well. And then on, I don't want to say the periphery, but the young folks are right on top of that learning exchange that's going on. They want to hear it. They don't want to miss a beat. Well, then on the periphery, you have your more senior folks. The win is like later on at an incident, later that day, next week, you see what we talked about applied from their perspective, or they did it. Maybe they stopped short to get, over or under a setback for an aerial truck or something like that. You're like, oh, wow. Like, that's what we were talking about, but I didn't even think they were listening. You don't want to, again, weaponize the experience. You don't want to, you're like, hey, you need to pay attention. Like, well, now you've lost them. So you hope that you can cast a big enough web that they get a nugget or two, and then they're listening. They just may not be looking at you, or they may step back because they kind of want to see what's happening, but they're listening. And I think that it's cool. It's cool to learn. It's cool. I was the best student. I sucked in high school. my sister is an attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and she's laughing right now because she's like, yeah, I told mom and dad you sucked in high school. All I wanted to do was
100%.
skateboard. All I wanted to do was skateboard. I didn't become the best version of my student learner until I was like 30, and I couldn't get enough of it. And that was exposure to people that showed me other avenues that were out there, other platforms that were out there. And I may not have agreed with how they did business, but what they showed me was great, and I learned and became better for it. So I'm just going to project this practice outward and hopefully net people that want to be better. And it's not me. I'm just a vessel of what I've been exposed to, and I just want to share that. I'm just the conduit, one of many.
Listen, bro, I couldn't agree with you more. Like I always said, like I was a terrible student, and it's because a lot of times I didn't apply myself. I wasn't interested.
Well, it's how
organized
you learn,
education
though.
wasn't.
It's how you learn. Like my daughter is a fantastic student, but she's way more artistic than some of her peers. But that's not her fault. You just need to, and that's one of the first questions I ask, like at least in a more refined educational atmosphere like the college, is like the first question: what type of learner are you? Do you need to read it? Do you need to watch it? Do you need to do it? Because we're going to do all of that. I just want to know so that no one's left behind, because I was left behind, and that sucks.
And the system back then allowed us to be left behind.
Well, when there's 3,000 applicants for one job, they can leave whoever they want behind. And
that's right.
Again, like I am here talking to you today by way of the roads I traveled, but some of it sucked a lot. And loss is sometimes the best.
Of course it did.
Loss is sometimes the best fuel for your fire, and some call it resiliency. But I remember some of those moments more than any of the wins, that's for sure. April was a great month for us this last year. That was great. A lot of wins. I even bought a lotto ticket before we went to FDIC because it was just like, wow, this is great. So, yeah.
Some of my biggest wins, what I recognize today, some of my biggest wins is the biggest kick in the teeth I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Like I've really started to value my experiences and understanding that some of my biggest victories were my largest losses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, how easy it would have been.
Makes me better.
Yeah. I mean, you could have just given up, right? Like could have given up.
Sure.
But
sure.
Something somewhere, like maybe you do it for the person that isn't around anymore or whatever. And that fuels it, or you have to, reach deep inside to make contact with that last little string that's still glowing, and then pluck it and you get revitalized. I think
it's funny how life works. You and I talked about it before we hit the record button today. When I went left, I went right. Well, guess what? Maybe if I went left, it would have certainly been different. But every other choice after that would have been different than the path I took.
Mm-hmm.
I can't dwell. I can't look back. I can't get upset about my past. I have to take every experience that I've come across, whether in life, in family, in the fire service. You take that, and it's what you do with it.
Sure.
Do you move forward from it?
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important, because I think people get stuck. People dwell. People worry about decisions and the decisions they've made. You can't change it.
Mm-hmm.
It's only the growth that comes from it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I think that's certainly, like, I have said or done things where it's like, darn it, like I wish I could have been nicer in this moment in time, or I wish, like mess up at a drill or something like that. And, like all that does is it makes me want to be better more and surround myself with more people that are great, and I can learn more from them and try to apply those skills with what I've learned to the task at hand. And I think looking in the rearview mirror,
I screw up every day.
Yeah, I think looking in the rearview mirror is important, because it remembers like a mountain you climb that you don't want to revisit, but you certainly learn from that experience. And
that's right.
The road.
That's right. Now, what do you do about it?
Totally.
What do you do about it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that is what sets people apart. It's what you do with the battles and things that you've had in your life, the experiences that you've had. It's what you do with them makes you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. you can come back from anything, man.
Yeah.
People are resilient,
Mm-hmm.
you know, mentally, physically, you know,
Emotionally.
I challenge everyone. If you don't like where you are, change it.
Sure.
You don't like this, change it.
Sure.
You have the power. And
Totally.
I love guys like you who allow for that to resonate, because you look at opportunities and you say, man, we're going to bring this forward. We're going to bring training here. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to better this. And it's because of your experiences, the way you've learned, your struggles, is how you now teach and reach out and put your arm out and grab the hand of the guy across the aisle and pull him closer to teach and educate, because you recognize something in him that you had in your, like, it's all of that.
Well,
That's how we move forward, man.
The guys that let me come down when I was a kid and help wash the fire engine at Station 6 here, you know, they gave me an opportunity, and now some of those guys are the deputy chiefs here, and it's like, hey, you want to give me another opportunity? Like, I've got this idea. Like, you let me come down. I thought it was a good idea to ride my bike down and help wash the green Ward LaFrance pumper in front of the firehouse. I've got another idea. You know, what do you think
Love
about
that.
this? You know, it had a black stripe on the bottom. It was so cool. And they had a green brush rig too.
That's awesome. Love it. Yes. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what you do for those guys that are now leaders in that fire department or that county, and you come back and you go, hey guys, you trusted me back then as a kid to wash these trucks. You've watched my career grow and flourish. Now I need you to trust me again. Those guys, when you walk out of the room, they all look at each other and just smirk at one another, because that, for me, is the fuel that I get. When I drop little bombs and hints here and there, and you walk away from it, and they take hold, and next thing you know, you hear somebody saying something you said to help educate or steer a conversation or guide someone else, and it's something you passed along.
Yeah.
Man, do you just, it just sits there and resonates, and you feel so good about what just happened. I love watching my people grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a high five. I got to, just this last week, we met at headquarters in Santa Rosa, and we talked about this event, and it's such a high five, like, to bring people to be brought into an environment with an idea, to be part of an environment that, again, what we're doing here is not wrong. Like, what's going on around here in Sonoma County today is not wrong. They're doing great things every day here with readiness and preparation.
Absolutely.
And it's like, let's double down on that. Like, you guys are doing, this is awesome. Let's just make a sandwich out of it. Like, let's just pile some more stuff on, because we've got volunteer organizations that get, they could donate large sums of money towards events like this, which benefits their firefighters that are responding to their community members. And it's the same people that are in the tractor parade in Christmas time. And it's like, it's just a huge investment. And I'm so fortunate. I think my thesis statement is, I'm just fortunate that people have allowed me into their lives. They've invested in me when I wasn't the winning horse, by far, not at all. And I remember who those people are, and I'm so thankful that these relationships I've had for over 20 years are now helping build relationships with our firefighters here and our firefighters regionally all over the Bay Area. And people are seeing that, and we're seeing it employed within our organizations, like we talked about with our after action reviews or our live fire training. It's great. And it's just, I think, because this is the best time to be a firefighter, and it's so easy to see what else is going on. It's like, oh, we can build that prop. We have these guys that are capable. They can build a lath and plaster prop at the training center, and then I almost said kids, the recruits can learn how to pull ceiling with what type of ceiling hook to pull ceiling with. Like, that's a win. All right. That is great. Because now then we're not MFing people like, oh, they don't even know what they're doing. It's like, no, they came, they saw, they did, and they applied and won. And that's a win for us. And it doesn't matter where they got it. Like, they applied a skill, whether they learned it here or they learned it somewhere else, they found that connection, education to application, and that was the win. And it has no brand.
How about those people that double down on you when you didn't think you were worthy of being doubled down on, right? Think about that. You just said that. Like, you don't forget those people. People gave you opportunity. They went all in on you. They believed in you. One of my dearest friends came to the fire service, and when we did background checks, I was told that you might not want this guy. He's a troublemaker in school, high school. He's a young kid, right? And you might not want him in the firehouse, and blah 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 blah. And I said to them, I said, maybe he's exactly the kid we want. I said, maybe he needs structure. Maybe he needs the fire service to figure things out. Maybe this is the kid that we want. We have to give him and expose him to what we do so well here, which might be the structure or focus he needs. And he turned out to be an incredible fireman and one of my great friends. And I'm so glad that I was smart enough to say, yeah, let's bring him in and see what we can do with this guy.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's what we need. We need that, man.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not like tooting my. I'm so grateful that I did that. But we need more people to provide opportunity like that.
Sure.
Those are the stories that I can't get enough of.
You know, they tease me, some of the older guard at one of the organizations here in Sonoma County. They said, well, you know, they created a ride-along policy because of you. And I'm like, oh, like, at first I was like, oh, man. But I was like, I just really wanted to be here. Like, I really wanted to be here all the time. And I saw one of those gentlemen who is now retired. He retired as a battalion chief. His son's on the job. And we were at a wildland refresher class the other day. And it was so neat, like 25 years later, to shake his hand and smile. Like, I remember when you were so annoyed that I did ride-alongs on Saturdays that, you know, but it's like, yeah, here we are, still at it. And super neat. I'm just, again, like, to any of the folks that believed in me, and there were times where, like, it would have been real easy for people to walk away. I remember, you know, specific situations where it's like, well, there goes Jack down a dark hole, you know, but someone still stood there with a candle lighting the way back. And, you know, I'm so thankful for all those people in my life. And I think it helped.
What about the fire service?
What about the fire service?
What about it? What did it do for you?
Oh, man.
How big of a part of your life, of who you are, who you've become? I mean, you know, it's the individuals for sure, but how about the institution itself? Well, I mean, I just can't get enough of it because I know what it's done for me.
Yeah, I think, it's great. It's definitely a huge part of who I am. And I'm lucky to work in an environment right now where there's so many different people that come together and make us who we are. You know, we've got chefs, we've got stockbrokers, real estate agents, other firefighters from other departments. It's super neat. Like, that makes us. But I think for me, it's awesome. It's just a great way of being. It's a great way of life. It's you make great friends, go on, you know, have great barbecues during the summer. You know, meeting up in Tahoe and hanging out together, or riding scooters through the dead of night in Indianapolis, you know, with your gang. And I'll send you that picture too. That's a funny one.
Yeah, please.
But, yeah, Ray kept saying, he's like, you got to stop riding them damn scooters, you know. But yeah. So it's awesome.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful, and I'm appreciative that it came into my life. And I just hope that the way I talk about it and the emotion that wells up in me when I talk about what the fire service has done for me, I hope that that's the norm. I'm just afraid that a lot of people are getting away from that, and that the fire service doesn't have the luster it once had for people. And I hear it a lot when you start talking about quality of life, quote unquote, or you start talking about, you know, loyalty and commitment to the job. A lot of people push back, which I never, you know, listen, I get it. I worry. I worry that the luster of that is disappearing.
I hope
it's not.
One of our peers here said he had to take a step back and look at who we're bringing into the fire department, not in a bad way, but they're coming into it with a different way of viewing,
Yes.
thinking, applying, living, and that's not a crime.
No.
It's that
No.
different, like, well, I only need to go to training if I'm on duty. Like my time off is my time off. It's that grabbing, like we talked about, like that one string and just like, hey, bing, check out what one day of your time off can build for you. You know what you can gain from it, and not to make it about like, well, what does it do for me? Well, what does it do for you and how you serve others? Because again, that badge is a shield that we wear to protect people that can't protect themselves. And we saw that when the fires
Yes.
passed through our region here in 2017 or 2015, and all the various fires we've had over the last 10 years, where it didn't matter, volunteer, career, retired, people showed up and they went to work. And I remember, I remember this one guy showed up in a community south of here, retired guy. He had an old leather helmet and a coat. And he walked up to one of the engine bosses and said, hey, how can I help out? And he's like, well, can you open a hydrant for us? And he said, sure. And he hopped on the rig and he took off. And I was like, wow, like, that's cool. Like, I hope all you young folks saw that, because this guy left his house to go volunteer, and we didn't know what we were facing that night and that next morning. And I was on one of our volunteer rigs with Kenwood that for like a majority of that time, work just said, hey, if you're affected, don't come to work. So I was like, well, I got to do something. So, I don't hope for, large scale events to rattle people's cages and realize what they've signed up for, because the fire service isn't for everybody. But you have to realize that it's not if, it's when. It's when you are called to do something that it will require 150% of your soul to commit to it, whether it's that extra 50-yard swim to grab someone that's in the ocean, whether it's that push down, a dark, snotty stairwell to the floor below, or working that trade for someone that is in need because they have something going on. It'll hit you a bunch of different ways, but that's what weaves the fire service together in more than just a clock in, clock out, 8 to 8 out the gate.
Very, very well said, my man. Jack Ayers, thank you, brother.
You're the best.
What a great time. I mean, it goes quick. An hour and a half, by the way.
Wow.
Goes quick.
It sure did.
Goes quick, and we didn't even scratch half the surfaces that I wanted to get into, and so on. I do want to bring you back. I want to do a San Francisco show.
Oh, okay.
I want to do a show where we talk San Francisco firefighting, meaning apparatus, infrastructure, history. Obviously the unique things about you guys. I mean, I always looked at like wooden ladders. Your truck guys didn't even wear bunker pants or boots until like, I don't know how too long ago, but like the axe sheath, like the copper and brass, fittings, the hydrants. I mean, there's so much uniqueness to the San Francisco Fire Department. So I would love to look at how we put together something where we can just dive down a hole and talk shop. I would love to do that.
Well, I think
that'd be a lot of fun.
We talked about some ideas when you come out in May. Next year, we'll do a little field trip with one of our members of the department and go around and see some things, and that'll be neat too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come in like a week early for that. By the way,
right? Yeah. I'm gonna
like,
black out the
camp
calendar
out there, right?
Yeah. That'd be cool,
right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I've always enjoyed my time every time we've gone to California. My wife and I have been there several times, and so on. And that's San Francisco, and then up into like the Napa and Sonoma area. It's stunningly beautiful. It's a beautiful part of our country. Half Moon Bay, just like gorgeous area.
Yeah.
So I am very much looking forward to the opportunity. So thank you for the invitation. I'll certainly be there. Talk about that again real quick. I know it's still in like the planning stages, right? But the date, do you know the dates so on of that conference next year?
Well, do you have
the info?
Oh yeah, we were at the 2024 event, like planning 2025. I was attentive to my duties with BIB and all those folks, but May 15th through the 18th, 2025, Santa Rosa, California, the 5th annual Bay Area Firefighters Conference hosted by Fire Nuggets in partnership with Santa Rosa Fire and all of our operational partners here in Sonoma, Marin, and Napa County. A lot of people coming together to make this a reality. It would not be possible without Fire Nuggets and an investment from our local fire departments here in the North Bay coming together and bringing that high quality, high speed training to the region.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm excited to see how it shapes up. And if the past few years is any indication of what it's going to look like next year, upward and onward, I mean, you had close to 500 people, I think, this past year. So awesome job. So spreading the good word. Jack Ayers, San Francisco Fire Department, brother, thank you for joining me today on the podcast, man. I appreciate you more than you know, and I'm looking forward to getting deeper in our friendship. And thanks, man. Thanks for trusting me today with your story. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Right on. Stay right there. I'm going to sign off the podcast. I'll come right back to you, man.
All right.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Do me a favor. As I say at the end of every single episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse, and talk about it, because when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.